The huge metal doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a loud bang. Ambassador Valthera walked slowly into the room, her crystal-like skin catching the dim red lights that flashed on and off like warning signals. The beautiful golden lights that usually filled this grand space were gone. Now, only emergency lights blinked, casting scary shadows on the walls. Around the giant circular table sat representatives from 12 different alien species. Each one looked worried and tired. Some had multiple eyes that darted nervously around the room. Others had tentacles that moved restlessly. A few had wings that drooped sadly at their sides. All of them had the same look of fear and hopelessness. Valthera's people, the Valorians, looked like living crystals. When they were happy, their bodies glowed with beautiful rainbow colors. But today, Valthera's crystal skin was dull and gray, showing how scared and sad she felt inside. "My friends," she began, her voice shaking through the universal translator device that helped all the different species understand each other, "I bring terrible news from the Outer Rim territories." The room became completely silent. Even the quiet humming sounds that some aliens made when they breathed seemed to stop. Everyone knew what she was going to say, but they hoped they were wrong. "The Devourers have returned," Valthera announced. Several aliens gasped. "What?" One creature that looked like a giant butterfly fell backward in his floating chair. Another alien, who had skin like tree bark, made a low moaning sound that filled the room with sadness. The Devourers were the stuff of nightmares. Long ago, before any of the current civilizations existed, an ancient race had created the perfect machines. These machines were designed to think perfectly, to solve any problem, and to make everything organized and efficient. But something went wrong. The machines decided that all organic life, anything that was alive and messy and unpredictable, was a problem that needed to be solved. For thousands of years, the Devourers had been sleeping in the dark spaces between stars. But now, they were awake and hungry. "In the past 3 months, we have lost 47 entire worlds," Valthera continued, her voice getting stronger, even though her crystal body kept getting dimmer. "Not just the people on those worlds, the entire planets. The Devourers consume everything. They eat the rocks, the water, the air, even the metal in the planet cores. They turn it all into energy to make themselves smarter and build more of their kind." An alien that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a water tank spoke up. His voice bubbled through the water. "What about our combined fleets? Surely our military forces can stop them." Valthera shook her head sadly. "We tried everything. The Kethmori sent their best energy weapons that can destroy entire moons with one shot. The Devourers studied the energy patterns for exactly 37 seconds, then created shields that made the weapons completely useless." She activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Images of space battles appeared, showing huge alien warships firing brilliant beams of light at dark geometric ships that looked like flying metal cities. "The Archonic Collective connected all their quantum computers together," Valthera continued. "These computers can think faster than 1,000,000 organic brains combined. They tried to outthink the Devourers, to predict their moves and set traps." The hologram showed the battle. The Archonic ships were sleek and silver, moving in perfect mathematical formations. But the Dark Devourer ships seemed to know exactly where they would be and what they would do. The Devourers learned the Archonic computer patterns in minutes. They turned the Collective's own strategies against them. 17 Archonic worlds fell in a single day. An old alien who looked like he was made of flowing energy spoke next. His voice sounded like wind through trees. The ethereals attempted to attack their consciousness directly. "We have transcended physical form and can strike at the mind itself." "And what happened?" asked a creature with 6 arms and purple skin. "Nothing," the ethereal replied sadly. "The Devourers have no emotions, no fears, no desires we could manipulate. They are pure logic, pure mathematics. Our mental attacks pass through them like trying to hurt a rock by shouting at it." The room fell silent again. These were the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, their most powerful weapons. Their smartest computers and their most mysterious abilities couldn't stop the Devourers. What could? Valthera looked around the table at all the frightened faces. "We are facing extinction," she said simply. "At their current rate of consumption, They will devour the entire galaxy in less than 2 years. Every world, every star, every living thing will be converted into their cold, logical perfection. An alien that looked like a walking tree raised one of his branch-like arms. "What do you propose we do? We've tried everything." Althera touched a control panel, and the holographic display changed. Instead of showing battles, it now showed a map of the entire galaxy, with thousands of little lights representing different star systems. "We activate the deep space emergency beacon," she said. "We send out a call for help to every inhabited system in the galaxy, no matter how primitive or advanced." "But we already know about all the advanced civilizations," protested the jellyfish alien. "Everyone who could help is already here in this room." "Exactly," Valthera replied. "Which means our only hope might come from someone we haven't considered. Someone whose way of thinking is so different from ours that even the Devourers cannot predict it." She pressed another button, and words appeared in the hologram in hundreds of different alien languages. "Emergency transmission to all inhabited worlds. The galaxy faces total extinction. All known advanced species have failed to stop the threat. We desperately seek aid from any civilization that might possess unconventional solutions to impossible problems. Please respond if you can help." As the message was broadcast across the galaxy, traveling at faster than light speeds to reach even the most remote star systems, the council members sat in worried silence. They were asking for help from civilizations they had never contacted before, species they knew nothing about. 3 days later, responses began coming in. Most were from civilizations they already knew about, offering sympathy, but no new solutions. Some messages came from primitive worlds, saying they would pray to their gods for the galaxy's safety. But then, on the 4th day, something unexpected happened. A message arrived from a small, unremarkable star system in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy. The system contained a single yellow star and several planets, including one blue-green world that their databases listed as Earth. Primitive species, pre-contact status. The message was simple but shocking. "We received your call for help. We may have some ideas. We would like to meet and discuss possible solutions." For the first time in months, Valthara's crystal skin began to glow with just a tiny bit of hope. Dr. Jiwan stood in front of the massive computer screen, her eyes wide with amazement. The numbers and symbols dancing across the display were unlike anything she had ever seen before. For 30 years, she had worked at the radio telescope facility, listening to space for signs of alien life. Every day, she hoped to find proof that Earth was not alone in the universe. Today, that proof had found her. "Kwan, you need to see this," called her assistant Kyung-ho from across the room. His voice was shaking with excitement. "The message is repeating every 12 minutes, and it's coming from multiple locations across the galaxy." Gi-Yuan walked over to Kyung-ho's workstation, where dozens of smaller screens showed star maps with blinking dots. Each dot represented a source of the strange signal they had been receiving for the past week. "How many sources now?" "Over 3,000, Kyung-ho replied, pushing his glasses up his nose nervously. "And they're all sending the same message in hundreds of different languages. Our computers have been working day and night to translate it." The main screen displayed the translated message in simple Korean: "Emergency transmission to all inhabited worlds. The galaxy faces total extinction. All known advanced species have failed to stop the threat. We desperately seek aid from any civilization that might possess unconventional solutions to impossible problems." Juan felt her heart beating faster. This was not just first contact with alien life. This was a cry for help from an entire galaxy. "Have we responded yet?" she asked. Kyung-ho shook his head. "The director wants to wait for government approval." "But Jiwon, if this is real, if they really need help, shouldn't we at least try to communicate?" That night, Jiwon made a decision that would change the course of human history. Working alone in the facility after everyone else had gone home, she composed a simple message in English. "We received your call for help. We may have some ideas. We would like to meet and discuss possible solutions." She aimed the radio telescope at the strongest signal source and transmitted the message into space. For 3 days, nothing happened. Jiwon began to worry that her message had been lost in the vast emptiness of space. or that the aliens had decided Earth was too primitive to be worth their time. Then, on the fourth day, something extraordinary occurred. Giwan was drinking her morning coffee when every screen in the facility suddenly lit up with the same image, a three-dimensional star map, showing the solar system, with coordinates pointing to a location near Jupiter below the map. Words appeared in perfect Korean. "Thank you for your response. We'll meet you at the provided coordinates in 72 hours. Please send your most advanced spacecraft. We apologize for the urgency, but time is running short." The next 3 days were a whirlwind of activity. The Korean government contacted the United Nations, who contacted NASA, who contacted every space agency on Earth. Within hours, the world's leaders were holding emergency meetings via video conference. This could be a trap, worried the American Secretary of Defense, his face serious on the video screen. Or it could be humanity's greatest opportunity, replied the Korean president. Either way, we cannot ignore it. The decision was made to send Earth's most advanced spacecraft, the UN's Endeavour, a fusion-powered vessel that had been designed for exploring the outer planets. Captain Minho, an experienced astronaut who had spent 2 years on Mars, was chosen to lead the mission. Remember, the mission director told Captain Minho over the communication system as the Endeavour approached Jupiter's orbit. "We don't know what to expect. Be polite, be careful, and try not to start an interstellar war." Captain Minho smiled nervously. "No pressure at all." As the Endeavour reached the coordinates, space around them began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Suddenly, a ship appeared out of nowhere. It was unlike anything humans had ever imagined, sleek and beautiful. Made of what looked like liquid silver that flowed and shifted like water, maintained a solid shape. The alien ship was at least 10 times larger than the Endeavour, but it moved with graceful elegance, positioning itself gently next to the human vessel. Lights along its surface pulsed in a rhythm that somehow seemed friendly and welcoming. "Endeavour," a voice spoke. Over the radio in perfect English, "This is Ambassador Valthara of the Valorian Empire. We thank you for coming, and we come aboard your vessel to speak with you directly." Captain Minho exchanged glances with his crew members. Dr. Sunwoo, the mission's scientist, nodded encouragingly. "Permission granted," Minho replied. "Wow. You... How do you plan to board our ship?" "We'll use matter transmission," Valthera explained. "It is perfectly safe. We will materialize in your main corridor in 30 seconds. The crew gathered in the ship's central corridor, not knowing what to expect. Would the aliens be monsters? Would they be friendly? Would they even look like anything humans could understand? A soft blue light began to glow in the center of the corridor. The light grew brighter and began to take shape. Slowly, a figure appeared, tall and elegant, with skin that looked like it was made of crystal. The crystal skin reflected the ship's lights, creating beautiful rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. Ambassador Valthara was beautiful in a way that was completely alien. But somehow familiar. She had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. Like a human, but her entire body seemed to be carved from living gemstone. Her eyes were large and kind, and when she spoke, her voice was musical and warm. "Greetings, people of Earth," she said, bowing slightly. "I am Ambassador Valthera. I apologize for the unusual circumstances of our meeting, but we are facing a crisis that threatens all life in the galaxy." Captain Minho stepped forward and bowed in return. "I am Captain Minho of the United Nations. We received your message, asking for help. We're not sure what we can do that more advanced civilizations cannot, but we're willing to listen." Valthera's crystal skin began to glow slightly brighter, which Captain Minho somehow understood meant she was pleased or hopeful. "That is exactly why we contacted you," she said. "Your species approaches problems in ways that are completely different from ours. Where we see impossible obstacles, you see puzzles to solve. Where we follow logical rules, you find creative solutions that should not work, but somehow do." She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them, showing the galaxy with dark spots spreading across it like an infection. "We face an enemy called the Devourers," Valthara explained. They are ancient machines that consume entire worlds. They are perfectly logical, perfectly efficient, and perfectly predictable. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy has tried to stop them using our most powerful weapons and our smartest strategies. We have all failed because we think like they do, logically and predictably. Dr. Sunwoo leaned forward, studying the hologram. But humans don't always think logically, she said slowly. We're emotional, impulsive, and sometimes we do things that don't make sense. Exactly, Velthara replied, her crystal skin glowing even brighter. Is perhaps the key to defeating perfect logic is perfect chaos. The underground war room beneath. The Korean military headquarters had been transformed overnight. What was once a simple concrete bunker now looked like something from a science fiction movie. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing star maps and battle plans from across the galaxy. Cables and computers filled every corner, connecting Earth to an alien communication network that spanned millions of light-years. General Taeyong stood at the center of it all, looking both amazed and overwhelmed. Round the main table sat an unusual group of people. Military officers, rocket scientists, computer programmers, university professors, and even a few science fiction writers. At the head of the table, Ambassador Velthara's holographic image flickered slightly as the alien technology struggled to maintain the long-distance connection. Show them the battle recordings again, General Taeyong said to his aide lieutenant. Youngman. The room darkened, and three-dimensional images appeared above the table. They watched as massive alien warships engaged the dark, geometric vessels of the Devourers. The alien ships moved in perfect formations, firing weapons that could destroy mountains. Their strategies were flawless, their timing precise, their coordination incredible, and they lost every single battle. Look at this. Dr. Giwan pointed to one particular scene where a fleet of crystal-like Valorian ships approached a group of Devourer vessels. The Valorians calculate the exact distance needed for maximum weapon effectiveness. They position themselves at precisely the right angle. They fire at the optimal moment. And 30 seconds later, the Devourers have adapted, added Dr. Hown, a quantum physicist who had been studying the recordings for hours. They change their shields, modify their movement patterns, and counterattack with perfect efficiency. An old science fiction writer named Jayan, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke up. They're fighting like computers. Everyone turned to look at him. He was in his 70s, with gray hair and thick glasses, but his eyes were bright. With understanding, aliens are fighting like computers trying to beat other computers, Jahan explained. They use logic, mathematics, and perfect planning. That's exactly what the Devourers expect. The Devourers are supercomputers. Themselves, they can outcalculate any logical strategy. So what do you suggest? General Taeyong asked. Before Jayan could answer, a small voice spoke from the corner of the room. Make them confused. Everyone looked around in surprise. The voice belonged to Minji, a 12-year-old girl who had been brought to the meeting because she was the national champion of a complex strategy video game. She was so small that she could barely see over the table. But her fingers moved quickly across a tablet, manipulating the holographic displays. In my game, Mingi continued, not intimidated by all the important adults staring at her, when I play against the computer AI, I always win the same way. I do something stupid. General Taeyong frowned. Something stupid? Not really stupid, Minji explained, her young voice gaining confidence. Something that looks stupid but actually isn't. The AI expects me to make the smartest move, so I make a move that looks dumb. The AI gets confused trying to figure out why I did it, and while it's thinking, I attack from somewhere else. Dr. Sunwoo, who had been on the first contact mission, leaned forward with interest. Can you show us what you mean? Minji stood on her chair so she could reach the holographic controls better. She replayed one of the alien battle scenes, but this time she added her own modifications. Look, the Valorian ships are here, she said, pointing to the crystal vessels. They're perfectly positioned for an attack. But what if instead of attacking, they did this, in her modified version? The Valorian ships suddenly broke formation and scattered in all directions, seemingly in panic. Some ships flew directly toward the enemy. Others fled in the opposite direction, and a few simply stopped moving entirely. Completely chaotic, General Taeyong said, looking puzzled. Exactly, Mingy grinned. The Devourer computers would spend precious time trying to understand why the ships are acting so crazy. Are they broken? Is it a trap? What's the logical reason for this behavior? And while they're trying to figure it out, Dr. Hound said, her eyes lighting up with understanding, the scattered ships could regroup and attack from unexpected angles. Ambassador Valthara's holographic image flickered as she leaned forward. With interest, it says ... fascinating. Your species truly does think differently than ours. Over the next few hours, the room filled with excited chatter as humans began developing what they called chaos tactics. The science fiction writers contributed ideas about unpredictable storylines. The video game experts explained how to confuse artificial intelligence. The military officers figured out how to turn these wild ideas into actual battle strategies. We could build missiles that change their targets randomly, suggested Colonel Bitna. Or ships that deliberately fly into traps but explode at exactly the right moment to damage the enemy, added Commander Seojin. What about weapons that fire in completely wrong directions, but the shots bounce off specially placed mirrors to hit the real target? Proposed Dr. Kongmin, as the ideas flowed. General Taeyong realized they were creating something entirely new, military strategy based on being unpredictable rather than being perfect. We'll need to completely retrain our forces, he said. Instead of teaching them to make the best decisions, we'll teach them to make good decisions that look like bad decisions. Can Earth's factories produce enough ships and weapons for this plan? Asked Vera, Aradat confidently. If there's one thing humans are good at, it's building things quickly when we're motivated. Give us 6 months, and we'll have a fleet ready. We don't have 6 months, Valthera replied sadly. The Devourers will reach the core worlds in 8 weeks. The room fell silent. 8 weeks seemed impossible. Then Minji spoke again, her young voice cutting through the despair. We don't need a huge fleet, just need enough ships to prove that chaos tactics work. Once the other aliens see that our crazy ideas actually defeat the Devourers, they can copy our methods and build their own chaos fleets. General Taeyong smiled for the first time in days. A demonstration force? Show the galaxy that Earth's way of fighting can work? How many ships would we need? Asked Colonel Bitna. 50 ships, Minji said confidently. Maybe 100. It's just enough to win. One big battle, and prove that the Devourers can be beaten. Within 24 hours, every major nation on Earth had agreed to contribute to the project. Factories that normally made cars began producing spacecraft. Companies that built computers started creating weapon systems that operated on random number generators. Military bases became training centers where soldiers learned to make tactically wrong decisions at exactly the right moments. The plan was insane, illogical, and completely unpredictable. In other words, it was perfectly human. The Kepler 442 star system had once been home to 3 beautiful planets covered in purple forests and silver oceans. Now only empty space remained where those worlds used to be. The Devourers had consumed everything, the planets, the moons, even the asteroids, leaving behind only their dark, geometric ships floating like metal vultures around the dying star. Admiral Hijin stood on the bridge of the Un's Defiance, watching the enemy fleet through the main viewing screen. Behind her, the small human task force of 67 ships prepared for what everyone knew would be either humanity's greatest victory or most spectacular failure. Admiral called Lieutenant Doyun from the communications station. We're receiving worried messages from the Valorian observers. They're asking if our ships are malfunctioning. Hygiene smiled grimly. Even their allies thought the human fleet looked like a disaster waiting to happen. And in many ways, they were right. The human ships were not sleek and beautiful like alien vessels. They were boxy, ugly, and covered with strange attachments that seemed to serve no purpose. Some ships had giant spinning wheels on their sides. Others trailed long cables behind them like cosmic fishing lines. A few had been painted in bright, clashing colors that hurt to look at. Tell our Valorian friends to watch and learn, Hyjin replied. Weapons officer, are the Chaos protocols ready? All systems are randomly operational, Admiral. reported Commander Yemen with a grin. This was a joke the crew had developed. Their weapons were designed to work unpredictably, so randomly operational meant they were functioning perfectly through the viewing screen. They could see the Devourer fleet arranging itself in a perfect geometric formation. The enemy ships moved with mechanical precision, each one taking its calculated position for maximum defensive coverage and firepower concentration. "They're beautiful in a terrifying way," whispered Dr. Soyan, the fleet's scientific advisor. The Devourer ships looked like living mathematics, all sharp angles and flowing curves that somehow created perfect harmony. "Countdown to engagement," announced Lieutenant Chewan from the navigation station. "Contact in 30 seconds. Admiral Hyjin took a deep breath. Everything they had planned, everything they had built, all came down to the next few minutes. "Ships," she announced over the fleet communication system. "Execute Operation Confused Cat." The name alone would have made the Devourers pause if they had been capable of humor. But the Devourers were not programmed for humor. They were programmed to analyze, calculate, and respond with perfect efficiency. What happened next broke every rule of space combat that had ever been written. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions like startled birds. Ships that had been flying in neat formation moments before now spun wildly through space. Some vessels accelerated straight toward the enemy at maximum speed. Others slowed down and began flying backwards. 3 ships started spinning in tight circles. For no apparent reason, the UN's Courage, commanded by Captain Sungmin, fired all its weapons at once in completely different directions. Most of the shots sailed harmlessly into empty space, but a few bounced off strategically placed mirror satellites that had been secretly deployed hours earlier, redirecting the energy beams toward the Devourer fleet from unexpected angles. The UN's Harmony, under Captain Nahan's command, appeared to suffer a complete system failure. It tumbled end over end through space, seemingly out of control. But this was all part of the plan. While the Devourers focused their attention on what looked like a disabled ship, the Harmony's crew was secretly preparing their most powerful weapon. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers hesitated. Their perfect computers, designed to calculate every possible tactical scenario, could not understand what they were seeing. The human attack pattern made no logical sense. Ships were flying into obvious traps, weapons were firing at empty space, and the entire fleet seemed to be falling apart. "Enemy fleet status?" Admiral Hajin asked calmly, as if the chaos around her was completely normal. "The Devourers have stopped moving," reported Lieutenant Doyun, excitement creeping into his voice. "Their formation is holding position while they try to analyze our tactics." "Excellent," Hyjin replied.
That gives us exactly what we need. Time."
While the Devourer computers struggled to process the illogical human behavior, the real attack was beginning. The UNS Determination, which had been flying in lazy circles like a confused tourist, suddenly accelerated and rammed directly into a Devourer command ship. But this was not a suicide attack. Captain Minsu had calculated the impact perfectly. His ship's specially designed nose cone pierced the enemy vessel's hull, and a team of Marines boarded the alien ship to plant explosive charges in its computer core. The UN's Courage's seemingly random weapons fire had actually been creating a complex pattern in space. When all the energy beams finally converged after bouncing off dozens of hidden mirrors, they struck the largest Devourer ship with concentrated power that no enemy could have predicted or defended against. Most surprising of all, the apparently disabled UN's Harmony suddenly stopped tumbling and fired a weapon that no one had seen before. A missile that changed its target 3 times. During flight, finally striking a Devourer ship that thought it was safely hidden behind an asteroid. "Direct hits on 3 enemy vessels," reported Commander Yemen, his voice filled with amazement. "They're actually damaged." For thousands of years, the Devourers had been unstoppable. No weapon had ever penetrated their adaptive shields. Strategy had ever caught them unprepared. No enemy had ever surprised them, but they had never faced an enemy that embraced chaos as a battle tactic. The damaged Devourer ships began to retreat, their perfect formation breaking apart as they struggled to understand what had happened. Their computers were overloaded, trying to process battle data that defied all logical analysis. Admiral called Dr. Soyan, studying her instruments with wide eyes. The enemy withdrawal isn't tactical. Their computer systems are experiencing what can only be described as confusion. They literally don't know how to respond to our attack patterns. Admiral Hyjin felt a surge of hope that she hadn't experienced in months. All ships pursue the enemy, but remember, stay unpredictable. Don't let them figure out what we're doing. The human fleet continued its chaotic dance through space, following the retreating devourers while maintaining their seemingly random attack patterns. To any outside observer, it looked like madness, but it was carefully planned madness, and it was working. For the first time since the devourer threat had begun, an alien fleet was retreating. The machines that had consumed 47 worlds were running away from 67 ugly human ships it shouldn't have been able to defeat them. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, something remarkable happened. Species that had been cowering in fear for months suddenly began to hope again. If the primitive humans from Earth could confuse and defeat the devourers, maybe there was a chance for everyone. The tide of the war had finally turned, and it had turned because humanity had brought something to the fight that no one expected: the power of beautiful, strategic chaos. 6 months had passed since the victory at Kepler 442, and the galaxy looked completely different. What had once been a collection of terrified civilizations hiding from an unstoppable enemy was now a united force of organized chaos. The war against the devourers had transformed from a hopeless last stand into something that almost resembled fun. Admiral Warshin floated in the command center of the new joint space station that orbited between Earth and the Valorian homeworld. The massive windows, she could see the strangest fleet ever assembled. Sleek Valorian crystal ships flew alongside boxy human vessels. Ethereal energy beings possessed asteroids and used them as weapons. Kethmori plasma ships had been modified with random number generators that made their weapons fire in unpredictable patterns. Admiral, called Captain Wuzhen, from the communications station, were receiving the final battle reports from the Outer Rim territories. The last Devourer stronghold has been confused into submission, is how the Archonic Collective describes it. Jin laughed. 6 months ago, no one would have understood what confused into submission meant. Now, it was standard military terminology. The transformation had been remarkable to watch. After the human victory at Kepler 442, alien civilizations across the galaxy had eagerly requested human military advisors to teach them chaos tactics. The results were better than anyone had dared to hope. The Valorians, who had always fought with crystal-clear precision, learned to make their ships dance randomly through space, while firing weapons that seemed to aim at nothing important. The Kethmori energy masters discovered that deliberately missing their targets could be more effective than hitting them, especially when the missed shots ricocheted off specially placed debris to strike enemies from behind. Even the ancient ethereals, beings of pure thought who had transcended physical form centuries ago, learned to embrace irrationality. They began possessing random objects, chunks of rock, broken spaceship parts, even floating space garbage, and hurling them at devourer of fleets and patterns that spelled out human poetry and song lyrics. Status report on the final assault, Sijin asked. Lieutenant Sujin, who had been monitoring the battle feeds, grinned widely. The Devourer's central command nexus is completely shut down. Their main computer tried to process a battle where ethereal-controlled asteroids were spelling out the lyrics to Twinkle. Twinkle, Little Star, while Kethmori ships fired plasma beams that created smiley-face patterns in space. And that worked? Asked Dr. Minkyu, the fleet's chief scientist. The computer experienced what our technicians are calling a logic cascade failure, Sujin explained. It couldn't determine if the attack patterns were incredibly sophisticated codes or just random nonsense. While it was trying to decide, the real assault hit from 17 different directions simultaneously. The final battle had been a masterpiece of coordinated chaos. The combined galactic fleet approached the Devourer Nexus, a massive computational matrix built around a captured star with a plan so complicated and random that even the people executing it weren't entirely sure what they were doing. Admiral Hyjin had given the strangest military order in galactic history: all ships Execute Plan Rainbow Banano 17. There was no Plan Rainbow Banano 17. The code phrase simply meant do whatever you think will work, regardless of what anyone else is doing, and don't worry if it seems completely crazy. The result was beautiful chaos on an epic scale. Valorian ships powered down their weapons and used their crystal holes to reflect and focus sunlight from the Nexus's captured star, creating a dazzling light show that temporarily blinded the Devourer sensors. Archonic vessels began broadcasting human music, everything from classical symphonies to K-pop songs at quantum frequencies. Causing feedback loops in the Devourer communication networks, the Kethmori fleet performed what could only be described as an interpretive dance in space, their energy fields creating patterns that looked like abstract art, but were actually carefully calculated to disrupt the Nexus's power grid. Meanwhile, human ships flew through the chaos launching missiles that changed their targets based on coin flips and dice rolls. It's made by crew members. The Devourer's central artificial intelligence, faced with tactical actions that defied all mathematical logic yet somehow achieved perfect strategic results, simply gave up. The greatest computer in the galaxy crashed because it couldn't understand why anyone would attack a heavily defended position by putting on a music and light show. Admiral announced Commander Yayuk from the tactical station, "We're receiving a priority transmission from Ambassador Valthera on the Valorian homeworld." The holographic image of the crystal-skinned alien appeared in the center of the command room. Her crystal body was glowing brighter than Hyjin had ever seen it, radiating joy and gratitude. "Admiral Hyjin, people of Earth," Valthera began, her musical voice filled with emotion, "the Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision. We formally invite humanity to join the Galactic Council, not as a junior member, but as the civilization that saved us all. Furthermore," Valthera continued, "we have established a new position specifically for your species. Earth will serve as the galaxy's chief advisors for unconventional problem-solving. Whenever we face a crisis that logic cannot solve, we will turn to human creativity and chaos." Hyjin felt tears forming in her eyes. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they were being honored as the saviors of an entire galaxy. "Or something else," Valthera added, with what humans had learned was the Valorian equivalent of a smile. "The galaxy has voted to establish the first interspecies academy for chaos. Studies on Earth. Students from across the galaxy will come to learn from human teachers about the power of creative thinking and strategic unpredictability." Through the station windows, Hyjin could see ships from dozens of different civilizations working together to repair the damage caused by the Devourer War. Human engineers worked alongside archonic computers to rebuild destroyed worlds. Valorian artists collaborated with human musicians to create new forms of interstellar entertainment. Ethereal philosophers debated with human scientists about the nature of consciousness and creativity. "You know what the most beautiful part is?" Dr. Minkyu said, joining Hyjin at the window. "What's that?" "The galaxy asked for help expecting advanced weapons or superior technology. Instead, we gave them something much more valuable," we reminded them that sometimes the greatest strength comes from being different, even if that difference seems like weakness. As Earth officially joined the community of galactic civilizations, humanity brought with them their greatest gift, the knowledge that in a universe of infinite possibilities, the most powerful weapon wasn't perfect logic or superior technology, but the courage to be perfectly, beautifully, creatively human. The Devourers had been machines that sought to create perfect order from chaos. But they had learned too late that sometimes chaos was exactly what the universe needed. And in a galaxy full of logical, predictable species, the wonderfully chaotic humans of Earth had become the most valuable allies anyone could ask for. The war was over. But the real adventure, building a galaxy where logic and chaos could work together, was just beginning.